I'm Rise, and today I'll be bringing to you a special episode. If you want to skip the intro and get right into it, I'll include a timestamp down below. Originally, I'd wanted to create another episode on my Stories of the Past series. It was supposed to be a fair arena versus the new general arena comparison. To the newbies that have no idea what I'm talking about, there used to be a different PvP system called Fair Arena back in the day. That arena required no gear and was completely excluded from PvE. By that I mean PvE had no impact on PvP. However, Neopol decided to include PvE again. There was a lot of outrage from this decision, as you can imagine, but Neopol promised us that it would be balanced to our liking. But exactly how balanced? As someone that's out there to get facts to you guys, I was actually hard pressed to find concrete patch notes on the new arena. The best I had to rely on was rumors, and the last thing I'd want is to have unverified rumors on my channel. That just wouldn't do. So I decided to test out the new arena myself and to figure out all the particulars. And boy, was I surprised at what I found. And after countless hours of testing, I finally figured out quite a few interesting mechanics about the new PvP system that I'll be going over in this video. This was all done weeks ago, but it took me this long to release the video simply because of the editing involved. I managed to store around 1 terabyte of footage, trying to verify and test all and every possibility I could think of. And going through all that footage took way more time than I expected. So this video is more of a casual preview of what I've found. In the next Stories of the Past, I'll talk about it in more detail with the comparison to Fair Arena. Consider this a special episode, not something you'll see very often on this channel. Well, with that introduction out of the way, let's get started. I'll be going over only the 2 major discoveries I found in my testing. I discovered and verified many more, but they aren't as impactful nor are they as important as these 2. In the next Stories of the Past, I'll be going over everything in detail, including all the minor information I ended up excluding from this video. First, a little background. When I originally was testing this out, I wanted to test if reinforcement mattered at all in the new arena. There were a ton of rumors about it being capped at plus 10 and that plus 11 or above is useless, but no verification. So I took a few of the same little weapons and reinforced them from plus 9 to plus 11, just to see how it would work out. So I grabbed my launcher and used a percentage skill I had to test it out. And I also used a fixed skill just in case. Theoretically, fixed shouldn't be impacted by reinforcement, but hey, you'll never know. As you can see in the background, I'm using one skill over and over again. But keep watching and see if you notice anything strange about the video. Did you notice it? Let's rewind and put it at slow motion. I'll also put the damages I'm dealing to the opponent on the screen as well. Yup, your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. The damages actually decreased. What in the world? This was a pretty earth-shattering discovery, at least for me and probably for a lot of PvP enthusiasts. Your damage gets lowered after the 50% point. The health bar is deceptive. So I kept testing this out and I discovered a few interesting points about the new health bar system. First, damage is lowered tremendously after the 50% point, and it only keeps decreasing the lower health an opponent has. This is probably one of the major reasons why PvP feels very long in our version of DFO. Originally in Fair Arena, PvP matches was extremely short. Neopol did say they wanted to have longer match time for PvP, but I had no idea this was one of the ways they implemented it. Second, the opponent does not get a damage increase. This was an important test, which you can see in the background right now. The opponent's damage does not increase if their health is lower than 50%. Only your damage is decreased. And finally, this means there's a comeback system implemented into the game itself. In other words, even if you are at a low health and the opponent is at a high health, does not mean the game is over. The health bar is deceptive and the opponent deals lower damage, so you have a good chance of turning the game into your favor. This discovery is one of the ones I thought blew my mind. Well, that was until I discovered the next major discovery. This discovery has a funny backstory to it. My friend Greg and I were testing for reinforcement. After I finished getting distracted by the previous discovery, I wanted to figure out if the reinforcements actually mattered or not. Turns out they do, but it was a very minor change. Plus 11 did more damage than the plus 10, but not by much, so you would not get that big of an advantage. So I was wrapping my video recordings and Reg suggested, "Hey Rise, let's do a plus 0 too." You see, I was only testing this out with a plus 9, plus 10, and a plus 11, so I did not even consider to compare with the plus 0. And I'm like, why? And Reg says to me, so the viewer can see the damage increase from plus 0 to plus 10. Now you might be wondering, why is this conversation funny? Well, it isn't. We were testing for something that sounded ridiculously obvious. A plus 11 does more damage than a plus 10, and a plus 10 does more damage than a plus 9. What could go wrong? Well, I'll let you see that for yourself. The first clip is of a plus 10, and the second clip is of a plus 0. Holy shit. I normally don't curse, but what in the world just happened? The plus 0 did more damage than the plus 10. That doesn't make any sense. They are both the same weapon, so how is this even possible? So, after more tests and brainstorming of theories on why this is the case, I figured out it was because of grades. Each weapon has a grade ranging from inferior to superior, and as it turns out, grades are the most important thing in PvP right now. The plus 0 had a higher grade than the plus 10, and so it trumped it in damage by a lot. To verify this theory, I even tested this out with the plus 2 weapon with the plus 11. Both same weapon, except the plus 2 had a higher grade than the plus 11. Not by much, as you can see on the screen right now, but there was a difference. And as you can see, the plus 2 is dealing more damage than the plus 11. Insane. I also tested this out with the same grade weapons, but different reinforcement. And yes, the higher reinforcement won out, but barely. Just to make sure, I also tested this out with armor too, with grades and reinforcement. Turns out armor grades and reinforcement don't matter at all. This honestly changes everything I thought about the old PvP system. Before Fair Arena, we used to have a PvE arena, and in that, the most important factor was reinforcement. Now that it's grades, this honestly means Kaleido boxes are actually super important for endgame PvPers. So to wrap up this discovery, it turns out grades are the #1 factor in PvP right now. Reinforcement don't really matter at all. They do add damage, but not a ton, so it's almost a non-factor. Kaleido boxes, on the other hand, are super important. Imagine you getting a Chronicle gear as a PvPer and you wanting to use it in PvP later on. However, it's only inferior rank, so what do? You gotta use a Kaleido box in order to change his rank, or grade I should say. That way you can actually be competitive in PvP, because having an inferior item is actually detrimental now. I'll say it again, it's insane. That's about it though regarding the two major discoveries. First, the health bar is deceptive, and second one is that grades are more important than reinforcement. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll be back with a more formal comparison in the stories of the past episode. For now though, I think I'm gonna go ahead and grab a sub. That excitement really got to me.